Oh, as we all know with Doctor Who, the leading character, the Doctor, changes on a fairly regular basis.
Wait, what?
Well, are we not doing a hello and welcome to the...
I never knew that.
Oh,
I never knew that.
I hate you. The Doctor changes quite regularly as the lead actor. Something they brought in after William Hartnell was found out to be quite ill during filming. So they got a new Doctor in to keep the show going forward, and then it figured out it worked. It kept a refreshing look on the show, and they started to realise they could play around with how they do this regeneration as well. So we're here today, really, to talk about our favourite one or favourites of the lot.
I think we just probably have a general discussion about the concept as a whole, and then just try and pick, and we both picked two different ones which we think are the best in terms of the regeneration, like, as a whole. And it was quite difficult for me, I'll be honest, because I've always been so like fascinated with the idea of regeneration in the show, and it's one of those things that no other show does. Like you change character, you don't keep the same character and recast them. You know, shows, well, if someone goes, they go, and that's it. There's so many different ways it can be done well and done poorly, because not every single one has been spectacular. There have been some I haven't really vibed with. Anyway, I'm gonna let you choose talk about your choice first, because spoilers, it's the first one
Yeah. Chronologically.
That's the word.
I think I got it wrong as well.
It'll do.
It'll do, don't care. So my first one is from Patrick Troughton into John Pertwee. It's the War Game series, 10-part series or serial, as my choice, purely because it's the first time they've realised we can start doing some interesting things with this regeneration.
Yeah.
There's an awesome story behind it where the Doctor has broken the laws of his people, and this is his punishment. He's forced into this regeneration, where you get to realise that they can choose how they look after. They get some say in that matter in this, which is a nice, interesting concept.
Yeah. And
it's come off the back of a very strong final story, I think, in my opinion anyways.
Yeah.
And just everything about how the build-up to it is, to right how it finishes, is just brilliant for me. I really love it.
I think with the War Games, it's like you said, it's the first time they've gone, well, we've done one now of the Doctor simply, growing old and tired. Well, what if we did something deliberate here? What if the Doctor was forced to change? And because of the situation of, if you haven't seen the War Games, bit of a spoiler, but, the Doctor sort of saves the day, but realises that he's way out of his depths trying to get all these different people back to their own times. Because at this point, the Doctor can't fly the TARDIS as well as he can now.
No.
So
he's still relatively new to all of it.
Yeah. So I think, having him put in a situation now where he's got no choice but to call the Time Lords, but he knows that doing that will result in him being put on trial, and having to face some sort of punishment, whether or not he knows it's regeneration, whatever. But he knows that he needs his priorities to get these people home, and he can't do that on his own, so he has to call in help, and he has to call in for backup. And I think there's that great, as I can't remember if it's the cliffhanger of part 8 or part 9, where he's called the Time Lords and everything's slowing down, and there's this real creeping sense of tension. You get that, and then you get that, they're there.
Yeah.
And, they're trying, the Doctor's doing everything he can just to get back to the TARDIS and go and leave the Time Lords to clean up everything without him there, but he just doesn't quite make it in time to put the key in the lock. It's brilliant,
Yeah, it's done very well.
And the Doctor, obviously, this is back when the Time Lords are very, I can't talk today, omnipotent beings. They're not the sort of bureaucrats that we see in, like, the 80s and sort of onwards from there. They are these, we don't really know much about them at all. We know that they're observers and they don't want to interfere. They're sort of almost godlike in a way that they're just overseeing everything and they don't want to get involved. And they do have quite a presence when the second Doctor is put on trial at the end. And he has to go through the whole, he gives his defence, I've been battling the Daleks and the Cybermen and whatever, and it's just, for them, it's like, well, we'll be nice to you, we'll strand you on Earth, and, we'll change your entire appearance and personality, and to them, that's quite a light punishment, and it's just...
And take this knowledge of time travel from you as well.
Which is another interesting thing, is that it's not just something that, you can learn, it's part of the Doctor, the connection with the TARDIS and everything. That's the first real hint we get that can be taken away, it's like they basically clamp the TARDIS, but taking his ability to undo a clamp off it, essentially.
Yeah.
I love it. I just think it's great.
Yeah, so do I. As I said, the whole War Game story itself was one of Troughton's best pieces of work, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like the War Games. I think it's probably maybe 2 episodes too long for me.
Yeah, it is a very long serial.
I don't think there's quite enough to justify 10 episodes, but I think you could quite easily take off 1 or 2 and it's
Yeah, some of it is filler, but
yeah. But that's just the way shows are made at the time, you know. The regeneration itself is quite trippy. It's very It's not like, you know, before, because it's an open-ended one. You know, you don't see Patrick Troughton turn into John Pertwee like you see William Hartnell turn into Patrick Troughton. You know, it's open-ended. You have the Doctor spinning off into that void, and after that 10 episodes, you don't really know if the Doctor's okay. You know, you've been told what's going to happen, but you don't see it. You know, if all we see is him spinning off into the void and shouting no over and over again. It's quite, you know, unnerving.
Yeah, it's a fairly dark end to Troughton's era as well, because he doesn't know what he's going to get, because the options he gets given of his new appearance he rejects, be it they're too big, too old, too young. So the Time Lords ultimately pick one for him, and he's stuck with it until Planet of the Web or something. I can't remember.
Planet of
Spiders. I knew it was one of them. And it's just, the whole serial ties together really well. The story going into the regeneration is beautiful, and as I said, I think it's some of Troughton's best work.
Yeah, I agree. I wanted to pick. There was 3 that I really wanted to do, and I forced myself to pick one. And I wanted to do Logopolis, where the 4th Doctor turns into the 5th. I wanted to do Caves of Androzani. That was I really wanted to do that.
Same.
But I thought in terms of like the theme of regeneration and the closure to that Doctor, I had to pick Bad Wolf and Parting of the Waves, which is by far the best regeneration of New Who. I was also very tempted to pick Power of the Doctor.
Yeah.
Because for all its faults, from the moment Yaz picks the Doctor up and carries her into the TARDIS, spot on. That regeneration is perfect. You know, there is a nitpick I have with it, that she doesn't get to say goodbye to the companions and whatever. But, you know, you used to that in Chibnall era. But that scene she gets with Yaz, and then, you know, the support group and everything, and her last like lines outside the TARDIS, and the shot of it as it pulls into that extreme wide shot of her on the cliff. That's brilliant. It was
beautiful. It really was beautiful.
Yeah, and I think enough time has passed since it's aired now for me not to be on the initial hype train of, oh my god, that was the best thing ever, for me to be like, objectively look at it and go, that was a really solid end to a Doctor's era, you know, and for an era that, you know, is no secret that I wasn't the biggest fan of. Neither is particularly
were. No, we got a whole video on that.
Yeah, as a whole, the regeneration did tie everything up quite nicely, and I did feel it satisfied going. I feel like I, you know, had a decent send off for Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. Anyway, back to my main point. Bad Wolf. I love it. I do. I think, you know, alright, it came out of the fact that Christopher Eccleston didn't want to do another series, which I think is one of the things, as a, you know, culturally, that we've been robbed of. Not that I blame Christopher Eccleston for it at all. You know, you've got to do what you've got to do. It's such a shame, because he's just so good in the role.
Yeah, he's the first Doctor like we properly watched from start to finish of his series.
Yeah, that was definitely the first Doctor where I could say I've seen, you know, all of it now.
Yeah,
you know,
and like it's obviously the first of the revival, so he is the figurehead, really the benchmark for everyone coming after him.
Yeah.
Now.
So obviously this Doctor is killed when he has to absorb the time vortex from Rose. My one and only nitpick, and the only thing I don't like about the regeneration, is the kiss. It's just so like forced and unnecessary. I could
cheesy.
See it was very 2005 TV. Like, you know, it was kind of always going to happen. It's just a bit out of character for that Doctor. Like, he never had any interest in, you know, giving Rose a smooch and everything. Train.
Choo.
But it just is a bit out of place, and he could have quite easily, I'm sure he could have drawn the energy out some other way, but I get it. It symbolises love for each other, and I'm willing to look past it because everything else is just so flawlessly executed.
Yeah.
The performances from Christopher Eccleston and Billie Piper are top notch. The music and everything. I love the fact that it's such a perfect conclusion. Like, that the episode itself is a perfect conclusion to the Ninth Doctor's arc. He goes from being this sort of veteran of the Time War to being, hopefully, you know, he's the man that can't push the button or pull the lever or whatever.
He can't do it again.
He can't do it again. He's done it. You know, he's willing to face death at the hands of all these Daleks, and, you know, because he doesn't want to be the person that pushes that button, and he'd happily die a coward rather than die a warrior like he did before. And I think it just perfectly ties up his whole era, to be honest with you. I love it. I love the fact that, you know, I think I've even done notes for this. because I thought about this. I had a long commute the other day anyway. What I love about it most is it's the optimism of it. It's not, the Doctor raging at the dying light like in the end of time and stuff, which is, as a regeneration, I'm not too fond of for reasons that we can always get into later. But I think with the Doctor being so optimistic, he embraces the change, and that helps us to embrace the change as the audience. And obviously, with Rose being the surrogate for everyone watching there, if he embraces the change, and so can she, it might be difficult and it might not be easy, but it's doable.
Yeah.
And I think it really helps. It's, I think it's the fact that it's so understated almost creates more drama, because yes, it's very optimistic and very looking towards the future, but there is that tension underneath it, when he's curling over in pain, and he, you can tell that he is scared. He's scared of what's going to happen, but he sort of pushes all that down to be all smiley and he's cracking jokes about, maybe I've got no head or whatever to Rose just to keep her calm, and help her to embrace what's coming. And it's the fact that he doesn't die. He's not exterminated by all the Daleks. He doesn't sacrifice himself in a big explosion. He dies to save his best friend.
Yeah.
Which is why it ties into why I like Caves of Androzani so much, because it's not the Doctor being this big grand thing like it is, say, in the time of the Doctor where Matt Smith is destroying all these ships and everything. It's just a case of he sacrifices himself to save his friend.
Yeah.
And it just works in that character. What else did I put in my notes? I put Kiss was unnecessary, but I've always said that. But yeah, I think as a whole, like I said, it's the first time so many people will have experienced a regeneration, and I think it's so much more effective for the Doctor to go and embrace that change while still being a bit like, sad about the fact that he is changing and, nervous about it and everything. That's fine. But to fully embrace it helps us fully embrace it. And I just find that I get more of an emotional connection to that than I do, the whole, I don't want to go and all that. Because looking at the other New Who regenerations, I think End of Time, I like the sort of
how it happens.
Yeah, it's it's the Doctor saving Wilf and everything, and he does that farewell tour, which has grown on me. I didn't used to like the farewell tour at all.
I always did, but I love it even more now because it just hits with so much more emotion.
Yeah, I think it's something that's really grown on. Even at the time when I was like, I think it's part of me is just like, because I want to get to the regeneration. Not that I was trying to get rid of David Tennant or anything, but that's your thing. This is the thing you're waiting for. And I was like, this is taking ages now. But now looking back on it, I can see it does make sense.
For me, with that victory tour, because I was a fan of Tennant and Rose, not as a couple, but just as a Time Lord and companion duo, I really loved their chemistry on screen. It was great, and that bit in the victory tour, almost, the homecoming run, when he goes back to 2005 to see Rose before she meets the Ninth Doctor, that's the bit for me that kept got my emotions. It's like he's gone that far back just to say goodbye one last time, really, to someone who at the time doesn't know who the hell he is.
Yeah, it's all, and I like the fact that this the 10th Doctor who's had like the biggest family on Earth and everything, and he ends up dying alone. He goes into that TARDIS. He's had his big rage speech before when Wilf was there.
And what a speech as well.
Yeah. I don't like the thing is with the End of Time regeneration, I don't like the fact that they push it as though like it's not a change, it's like a full on, oh, I'm dead and some other bloke goes sauntering off and everything. I've never really got behind that. It's never been done before, and it's not really been done since, I don't think. I think, like I said, I enjoy it when the Doctor embraces the change rather than flat out resists it in like an emotional sense. Do you know what I mean? Like, going, I'm gonna die,
like
I'm
Twice
gonna die.
Upon a Time.
No, that's what I mean. I don't mind that so much because he's sort of holding that back to get other stuff done the same way. That's another reason why I like Cave so much, because the Doctor is regenerating by the end of part 3, and he holds it all the way off to the end of part 4 just to be able to save Perry. Anyway, yeah, so the End of Time, I don't like the... Oh, but I know it's quite... Just completely lost my train of thought. I know it's like End of Time isn't very popular. It's quite Marmite-y with some people. I don't have a problem with it. The only problem I have is the way that the regeneration is, and it's only a minor nitpick. It doesn't, ruin the whole story for me. But I just don't like the whole playing it like, oh well, I'm dead now. I'm going. I'm some other guy's gonna go. It's like it's too sulky. And the thing is, I complain about it. That's basically because I don't like it. In terms of the 10th Doctor, it fits quite well. But this is a man who only recently regenerated anyway and kept his face because he didn't want to change. So it does fit. I think it would be quite weird if all of a sudden he's like, I'm going to change now and everything's going to be fine. It's just personally, I just don't get on with it. But in terms of like character and story and stuff, it does work.
Yeah.
It's just not something I particularly get on well with. It's the Time of the Doctor.
Yeah.
That I like because it's...
The reset.
I don't like the reset. That's the one thing I would nitpick with it.
What is that reset? So after he's had all that big emotional, I've killed all the Daleks, he still comes back as a young Matt Smith.
Yeah, he has the whole big OTT thing, and I think when he does that and it all, he explodes basically, and you see those steps coming up the TARDIS. I thought, wouldn't that be so interesting if that's just Peter Capaldi stood there now? We don't quite see it. I think that would have been a brave choice to do. I do love the speech he gives. I love the speech about embracing the fact that we always carry who we are. Everyone changes, not necessarily in terms of like full-on regeneration changing physically, but we all change through our lives, and we keep that with us.
Yeah,
that's, I think, one of the most powerful and
regeneration speeches there is.
Yeah, I don't really think that Amy cameo was needed. It was a bit self-indulgent.
Yeah,
especially
that was
to leave off Rory as well.
Yeah,
it just was a bit unnecessary, a bit on the nose. I just think that when we spent the whole episode seeing this Doctor age, as we get to the proper zenith of this now, before he does change, for him to just go back to being the way we saw him, it doesn't. Not that it takes away from it. I just think it would have been nice to see him carry on. It'd have
been a bit stronger, I think.
Yeah, because the stuff when he is like properly old, and Clara's having to hold his hand to pull the cracker and everything, that really gets at the heartstrings. And I think having Matt Smith do that speech as an old man, carrying on this, old man in a youthful man's body that we'd seen all through his tenure, really, I think, would have been slightly more effective.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one. It would have been a lot nicer. Not to take away from what we actually got, because I did enjoy what we got. It was interesting, and I enjoyed the speech as well. It would have been weird to see how that speech would have fit in, considering when Clara was holding his hand for the cracker. That would have been the sort of time I'd say that speech would go. But in terms of the actual story, the Daleks and stuff, the last little bit hadn't happened. He hadn't received the next batch of regenerations.
Yeah, I fully get like the granting the regenerations here and everything, and destroying. I can just about.
Yeah, it's just that.
Just about forgive the fact that all this regeneration energy is blowing up these Dalek motherships and everything. I can just about forgive that.
It's blown up the TARDIS before, well, twice now.
Yes, but I get that because it's the TARDIS changing with the Doctor, but the fact that this regeneration energy has like fully like physical damage on massive bloody Dalek ships.
Not just that, it completely wiped out the town as well, pretty much.
It just knocks everything over. I think carrying over into having that phone call just after he's reset as well, that you see in Deep Breath, that was a nice touch. That was something a bit different. I think that was there to reassure audiences that, all right, the Doctor might not have been this conventionally attractive young bloke anymore, and was a slightly older, mature man.
Still the same.
Still him. I think that was quite nice for the audience, and it worked quite well, I think, with Clara's character and everything. 12th Doctor's regeneration.
I enjoyed parts of Twice Upon a Time. I feel it could have been a bit stronger, maybe. I love the fact we got David Bradley as the first Doctor, for one. That was interesting. Don't like the fact that he was fighting his regeneration, because at no point in Classic Who was that happening.
I can sort of see it. I like the fact that they did include it. I don't think they should have been used anywhere near as heavily as he was, and I can't stand the fact that they wrote him as if the first Doctor was a sexist, when that's not the case. That's just the way
it was.
I wouldn't say everyone, but that's how TV was written at the time, especially when you've got this sort of patriarchal figure and younger women and stuff, and to sort of, that's the kind of thing that we acknowledge and go, yeah, that's unfortunate, but it was a thing at the time, and we've moved past it now. But to have it so highlighted in an episode that was broadcast in 2017, it shouldn't have been included at all, because the first Doctor as a character is not sexist. It's just that's how characters were written in the real world at the time, and we've moved past that.
Yeah,
it shouldn't have been included at all. If it was going to be included, it should not have been played for jokes. It's so Stephen Moffat playing sort of like misogyny and as a joke, being all like, oh, Polly's not here to spring clean the TARDIS. Like, no, that's not even. That's he never even said anything about like the female companions getting the TARDIS at the time. Where's that come from, Steve?
They added
Where's that come
in.
From?
They added a lot more in that wasn't there in the original bit. I do like that Capaldi was trying to be like, no, you can't say stuff like that. He was.
I will forgive the jolly good smack bottom, because that's a direct quote.
Yeah,
and that I can just about, and I mean this in like, there's the line there, and the joke is there. Just about look past it because of the reactions and how it, it reminds the 12th Doctor of how far he's come. But this is what I mean. He shouldn't have come from that place, because the first Doctor wasn't a sex. Oh, anyway, I'm getting in a rant mode here. But I don't like Twice Upon a Time, right?
Yeah, no,
The Doctor...
the valid reasons.
Obviously, the plan was always for Peter Capaldi to regenerate at the end of Series 10.
Yeah.
He should have regenerated after the Battle of the Silent Men.
After the Doctor falls.
Yeah.
The name is the Doctor falls.
Yeah.
And he doesn't.
And
he does, but he gets back up.
I get why Stephen Moffat did it to sort of write it to keep... Because Chris Chibnall doesn't want to start with a Christmas special. Fair enough. You want to start with your own episode 1 of your own series and go from there.
And as a Christmas special on its own, I thought it was actually quite good. It tied up everything with Rusty. Because you had that Dalek.
Yeah, but was anybody crying for the return of Rusty the Dalek?
No, but it would have been strange if it just like kind of got left as a Dalek out there. Like it would have been a kind of a weird loose end to leave. Not important in terms of story. A nice little tying up of that one, so it can't happen again.
It would have been so much more effective if he'd have regenerated at the end of that after saying goodbye to Bill and Nardole. He stumbles back into the TARDIS. The speech. I like the bit when he talks to TARDIS, where he's doing the whole, I know they'll get it all wrong without me. That's fine. It's when he starts running around and speaking to like the future him going, you know, and never ever repairs, and love is always love, and hatred is foolish. Oh, shut up. I can do without that. Just because I know Capaldi has had some great speeches, but that one is dog shit, to be honest.
I do think it would have been better, because you had that scene where he was in the TARDIS at the end of The Doctor Falls, and he wakes up.
Yeah, exactly.
And he just starts rattling off, I don't want to go.
Or even to the point, right?
And he goes like, when the Doctor was... He just loads of callbacks to his previous selves.
I don't mind that. And he has the visions of his companions, everything. And even if you have the thing of the Doctor landing in the South Pole and you see, like, maybe from a distance, the first Doctor being, like, carried by Ben and Polly into the TARDIS, and that sort of reminds him to regenerate, I can deal with that.
That would have been a much nicer touch.
Yeah. Having that as, like, having him as a cameo or something, you know, do we need the rest of Twice Upon a Time? Because alright, I know the whole point of it isn't a big plot or anything, but I think after going from such a strong finale from Series 10 to just like essentially it is basically a filler episode for Capaldi's last run, and the majority of like especially the first half is very much like focusing on the first Doctor, and Capaldi's there sort of quite secondary. It's an issue a bit that I had with Power of the Doctor as well. It's Jodie's last episode and she's barely in it.
Yeah.
I think looking back, like the regenerations that we have in Classic Who, I mean, it's difficult to count the last two really, because obviously 6 to 7 is McCoy in a wig in a pre-title sequence, and that's terrible.
It's a terrible
McCoy
wig.
gets gunned down and then dies from botched surgery, and that's terrible in a potential relaunch of it. But the other 5 regenerations, you know, Hartnell, Troughton, Pertwee, Baker, and Davison. They're all stellar stories. Yeah. They had 10th Planet, War Games, Planet of the Spiders, Logopolis, and Caves of Zanzani are all top tier for that Doctor.
I even enjoyed the Night of the Doctor, I'm not going to lie.
Night of the Doctor is something that we need to mention as well, to be fair, because that
is a regeneration.
It is, and it's only a short episode, but the idea of, you know, we can other people can start influencing these and the fact that the Doctor is dead and has only been temporarily revived to choose to either die as he is and at the time will carry on, or go on as a warrior and not be the Doctor anymore. Yeah, I think it's just a shame. I'd have loved to have seen that expanded on more. Same, and I don't think we're gonna get that unless they do a Big Finish on it. Yeah, I mean, Big Finish have filled the gap for the 6th Doctor's regeneration, so. Yeah, but I think I'm quite happy with how the 8th Doctor's regeneration. I just wish there was more time of him processing that and more of a build up to it. I kind of wish we had a season of it. Yeah, almost. Yeah, just a season running up to him landing in that ship. I'd have taken just 1 hour long special. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Yeah, but just a bit more. And I'm not going to complain that we've got an extra 8 minutes of a gallon. It canonised all of Big Finish as well, which is good work, Steve. But yeah, the Big Finish, they did an audio filling in the 6th, because obviously in the TV series it's quite ambiguous. It was always he bumped into the console and he died, and that's a bit naff. Yeah, Big Finish's one is a lot better. Yeah, it's him. You know, he has to sort of drag, because he's the Valiards on their tail and everything. They drag the TARDIS through the location system because it's fatal to Time Lords. Managed to get rid of Valiard, but at the expense of his own life, basically. And that's a really good regeneration. He goes up with quite a really good story. Good, a good speech, and then you have that sort of echo of McCoy as well, which is the only way you can really do it on audio, to be fair, if you because you can't see him change into McCoy. No. Have his voice as he's changing as well, and the last line and the first line of the two of them saying that their future is in safe hands is great. But overall, I think we've rambled a fair bit here now, to be fair.
No, but as a whole, the concept of regeneration, you never know what you're going to get. Well, you know which actor's going to fill the role. You just don't know how they're going to take the Doctor.
Look what happened in October.
This is
we
true.
didn't know if we were going to see Shooty or David Tennant.
But you knew Shooty was going to come. The David Tennant. Oh, you knew David Tennant was coming back before Shooty. You just didn't know in which order, like where.
Well, we knew it was one of two people.
Yeah, we knew it was one of two. But you always
know, like, you know, usually you go into it going, we're going to see Jodie Whittaker at the end of this, or Peter Capaldi, or Matt Smith at the end of this.
Yeah.
But this one, we were like, it's 50-50. We don't know who we're going to get.
Yeah, and that was a really nice touch, to be honest.
So to wrap this up then, how would you do a regeneration? If you were writing out, you know, a final story, what would you do? Would it be a big sacrifice? Would it be something smaller?
I think I'd go not planning, saving, sacrifice, but like a few small people, a few small insignificant people, like in terms of to the story. Just
I feel that's always way more effective.
Yeah, it's got a lot more meaning to it. It'd be a lot nicer. It's a lot more sentimental. He's doing it because he genuinely loves the people he's doing it for on that one. Whereas with the big planet saving stuff, it's just like, oh, look at me, I'm awesome. It feels sometimes. Yeah, like, that's kind of how the time of the Doctor. That I love the regeneration story, but that's how it felt. Was look at me, I've just defeated everyone now.
Yeah, I think it works so much more on a smaller scale. You know, he's doing it to save a handful of people.
Yeah, like in Parting of Ways.
Yeah, Kees van Rosani.
Although saying that though,
but I say that the Logopolis works quite well. I mean, in the end of the day, he dies unplugging that cable to stop the Master from wiping out the universe.
Yeah, and in the War Games, the Doctor sends everyone back to their time so they can live out their lives.
Yeah, and
it works really well there. But with New Who especially, I do feel it's more of look at me, look how good I am with the big planet saving regenerations, whereas the smaller ones like Eccleston's so much more effective. Just for the fact it's such a finite amount of people he's actually saving at the time.
See, for me, if I could get away with it, right, and it's unlikely that you ever could, but for me, I would have, saying that the final season of my Doctor, whoever they may be, in the background of different shots throughout the episodes leading up to the finale, you have the Watcher.
Yeah.
And it's at the start of the series, it's very much, you'll have like a crowd scene and you'll just see like him in the passing, and then, you know, he might be in the corner of a room in, you know, towards the end, and then they merge. And I'd like to have my Doctor killed off in the middle of a problem, similar to what they nearly did with the 10th Doctor originally in Stone Earth. Have the Doctor changing that, and the first thing is to sort out the problem that's just killed them. It raises the drama a little bit, and I think having the Watcher would be a nice little callback. And like I said, it would be sort of like in, you know, in Fringe, where they've always got the bloke in the suit just in a shot in passing, and you don't know what it means, and it'd be quite a fun thing for someone to eventually. And you make no big deal of it, and you almost sort of deny it. And people are going, I just saw the Watcher there, you know, in episode 1 he's just in a crowd shot, episode 2 he's in, like, you know, getting a bit closer. By the end of it, you know, he's fully there. Yeah. He's not interacting, but the Doctor, and then say like sort of halfway through the series or at the start of the final 2-part, whatever format I'm doing, I haven't really cooked this idea through my head, but the Doctor finally sees it and acknowledges it and goes, all right, okay. But doesn't make a big deal of it, but you know that the Doctor knows that their time is basically up.
Yeah. So for me, going back to mine, I'd have it so almost like The Edge in The Power of the Doctor, where you see the past Doctors, just the Doctor walking around, but he's hearing his past selves speak to him, and it's just the Doctor's at the edge saying, like, it's okay, like he's struggling to come to terms with something that's going on, but he doesn't know it's going to kill him yet. It's a bit of a head teaser, like mashup thing. And something that you have to pay attention to, but the story and the payoff itself is so good. And then again, it would be you can't do it now because they've done it at Power of the Doctor. But in my ideal world, they'd have like Paul McGann and a couple of the old Doctors standing there, like greeting him in as the new Doctor swans off in the TARDIS, as a final scene sort of thing.
Yeah, that could be interesting, to be fair. Well, let us know what you would do and what your favourite regeneration story is. This has been a bit more rambly than we intended to, but that's fine. Yes. Let us know.
Yes, and please don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and if you feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below.
Yes. See you next week.
See you next week. Bye-bye.